The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I sat in the sterile waiting room of St. Mary's Hospital, my hands trembling slightly as I clutched the emergency contact forms. The antiseptic smell mixed with the distant sounds of medical equipment created an atmosphere of controlled chaos that seemed oddly appropriate for the situation. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that a routine Tuesday morning would lead to this moment, where my arrogant boss would discover that the woman he consistently dismissed as just the assistant was actually the one person who could save his career. My name is Sarah Chun, and for 3 years I had endured the daily humiliation of working under Marcus Wellington, the most condescending department head at Pinnacle Marketing Solutions in downtown Chicago. Every morning, I would arrive at our glass-walled office on the 32nd floor, watching the early commuters below navigate the bustling streets of Michigan Avenue while Marcus treated me like I was invisible. Despite the fact that I held 2 master's degrees from Northwestern University and had single-handedly saved our department from multiple disasters that would have cost the company millions of dollars. The irony of the situation was not lost on me as I sat there in that uncomfortable plastic chair, surrounded by worried families and the constant flow of medical professionals in their scrubs. Here I was, filling out paperwork as the emergency contact for a man who had spent 3 years making sure everyone knew that I was just his assistant, nothing more than a glorified secretary who happened to have fancy degrees that meant nothing in the real world of business, according to his frequent dismissive comments during staff meetings. Please subscribe to our channel to help us bring you more real stories like this one, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your support means everything to us. The October wind rattled the hospital windows as I reflected on how we had ended up here. It had started like any other day, with Marcus barging into the office at 9:30, his expensive Italian shoes clicking against the polished marble floors as he demanded his usual triple-shot espresso from the local Starbucks and began his morning ritual of barking orders at everyone within earshot. The autumn sun struggled to penetrate the heavy clouds that had settled over the city, creating an atmosphere that perfectly matched the toxic environment Marcus had cultivated in our workplace. I remembered how he would stride through our open-plan office like he owned not just our department but the entire 32nd floor of the Aon Center. His designer suits, perfectly styled hair, and expensive watch were all carefully chosen props in his performance as the successful executive. But those of us who worked closely with him knew the truth. Behind the polished exterior was a man whose career had been built on manipulation, intimidation, and stealing ideas from the people he was supposed to lead and develop. The morning routine never varied. Marcus would arrive fashionably late, make a grand entrance that ensured everyone knew he had arrived, demand his coffee be prepared exactly to his specifications, and then spend the first hour of his day making phone calls to other executives where he would take credit for work that his team had completed. I had lost count of how many times I had heard him describe my strategies, my research, and my innovative solutions as if they had sprung fully formed from his own brilliant mind. For months, I had been secretly working on a revolutionary marketing campaign for our biggest client, Henderson Industries, a family-owned manufacturing company that had been with our firm for over 15 years. The company specialized in producing high-quality industrial equipment and had built their reputation on reliability and craftsmanship, but they were struggling to connect with younger consumers and adapt to changing market demands. Marcus had dismissed my initial proposals during a particularly humiliating staff meeting, telling me in front of the entire team to stick to scheduling his meetings and ordering his lunch from his favorite restaurant on Wacker Drive. But I continued developing the strategy during my lunch breaks and evenings, knowing that Henderson Industries was on the verge of taking their business elsewhere due to our department's recent string of failed campaigns. The research phase alone had taken me 4 months of dedicated work. I had conducted detailed market analysis, surveyed over 500 consumers in Henderson Industries' target demographics, studied their competitors' marketing strategies, and identified specific opportunities where they could differentiate themselves in an increasingly crowded marketplace. I had even reached out to environmental consultants, sustainability experts, and supply chain specialists to understand how Henderson Industries could transform their operations to meet the growing demand for environmentally responsible manufacturing. What Marcus didn't know was that I had been building relationships with key decision-makers at Henderson Industries for over a year. While he treated our client meetings as opportunities to showcase his own supposed brilliance, I had been quietly establishing genuine connections with the people who actually understood their business challenges. Jennifer Henderson, the founder's daughter who had recently joined the company after completing her MBA, had specifically mentioned to me on several occasions that she wished our agency could provide more innovative and forward-thinking strategies. The irony was not lost on me that Marcus had built his entire reputation on ideas that were originally mine. 3 years ago, when I first joined the company fresh out of Northwestern University with dual degrees in marketing and psychology, I had naively shared my innovative concepts with him, believing that collaboration would lead to mutual success and that working under an experienced executive would help me develop my own leadership skills. Instead, Marcus had stolen my ideas, presented them as his own to upper management and industry publications, and received not only a substantial promotion but also industry recognition that should have been mine. I still remembered the first major campaign that had launched Marcus into the upper echelons of our company's hierarchy. I had developed a comprehensive rebranding strategy for Morrison Electronics, a mid-sized technology company that was struggling to compete with larger corporations. My approach had focused on positioning them as the personalized alternative to big tech, emphasizing their customer service and customization capabilities. The campaign had included everything from a complete visual identity overhaul to a social media strategy that highlighted real customer testimonials and behind-the-scenes content that humanized their brand. Marcus had taken my entire presentation, changed the font and color scheme, and presented it to Morrison Electronics as his own work. The campaign had been a massive success, generating a 40% increase in sales within 6 months and earning Marcus a feature article in Advertising Age magazine. When I had tried to discuss my role in developing the strategy, Marcus had dismissed my concerns and suggested that I was confused about who had contributed what to the project. He had even gone so far as to suggest that my job was to support his creative process, not to generate original ideas of my own. That Tuesday morning had begun with Marcus storming into our department at exactly 9:45. His face flushed red with anger as he announced that Henderson Industries had scheduled an emergency meeting for that afternoon. They were threatening to terminate their contract unless we could present a compelling new strategy within 48 hours. The panic in his voice was unmistakable, despite his attempts to maintain his usual authoritative demeanor in front of the 20-person team that made up our marketing department. I watched from my desk near the window as Marcus paced frantically around the conference room, his expensive suit jacket wrinkled from nervous perspiration, and his usually perfect hair showing signs of stress-induced dishevelment. He had called an emergency brainstorming session, demanding that everyone drop their current projects and focus exclusively on developing a presentation that could save the Henderson Industries account. The desperation in his voice was something I had never heard before, and it was clear that he finally understood the consequences of 3 years of mediocre work and stolen ideas. While Marcus frantically called other agencies to steal ideas and browsed competitor websites looking for inspiration he could plagiarize, I quietly reached into my desk drawer and pulled out a comprehensive presentation I had been perfecting for months. The document was over 60 pages long and represented hundreds of hours of research, analysis, and strategic development. The campaign, titled Renaissance Revolution, focused on Henderson Industries transforming their traditional manufacturing approach into an environmentally sustainable operation that would appeal to younger consumers while maintaining their loyal customer base who valued quality and reliability. I had spent countless hours researching market trends, conducting consumer surveys, and developing detailed financial projections that demonstrated how this strategy could increase their profits by 30% within 18 months. The presentation included everything from redesigned packaging using biodegradable materials sourced from certified sustainable forests to a comprehensive social media campaign that would showcase Henderson Industries as an industry leader in corporate responsibility. I had even developed partnerships with 3 major retailers, including Whole Foods Market and Target, who had already expressed interest in featuring Henderson's products prominently if they adopted sustainable practices. The research was thorough, including detailed environmental impact assessments, cost-benefit analyses, and financial projections that demonstrated how this strategy could increase their profits by 30% within 18 months, while reducing their carbon footprint by over 40%. The creative elements I had developed were unlike anything our industry had seen before. Instead of traditional advertising that focused on product features and benefits, my campaign told the story of Henderson Industries' transformation from a traditional manufacturer to an environmental pioneer. The centerpiece was a documentary-style video series that would follow the company's journey towards sustainability, featuring real employees, genuine challenges, and authentic moments of discovery and innovation. I had also developed a comprehensive digital strategy that would leverage social media platforms, influencer partnerships, and content marketing to reach younger consumers who valued environmental responsibility but had never heard of Henderson Industries. The strategy included everything from Instagram partnerships with environmental activists to a TikTok campaign that would showcase the manufacturing process in an engaging and educational format that would appeal to younger audiences while building brand awareness and trust. But as I sat there watching Marcus pace frantically around the office, making increasingly desperate phone calls to contacts at other agencies, and frantically searching the internet for ideas he could steal, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of handing over my work to save his career once again, I decided to let him face the consequences of his own incompetence and lack of original thinking. I slipped the presentation back into my drawer, locked it securely, and continued typing up his correspondence as if nothing had happened. The decision wasn't made out of spite, though I would be lying if I said there wasn't some satisfaction in watching Marcus finally confront the reality of his limitations. It was made out of self-respect and the realization that I had been enabling his behavior for 3 years by consistently rescuing him from situations that were entirely of his own making. Every time I had provided him with ideas, research, or solutions that saved his reputation, I had been teaching him that he could continue to take credit for work he didn't do because someone would always be there to clean up his messes. As the afternoon approached and Marcus became increasingly frantic, I watched him attempt to cobble together a presentation using outdated market research from our database, generic stock photos he found online, and strategic recommendations that he had copied from various marketing blogs and industry websites. The contrast between his hastily assembled collection of plagiarized content and the comprehensive, original strategy one had locked in my desk drawer was almost comical, except that I knew the consequences for our entire department would be severe if Henderson Industries followed through on their threat to terminate their contract. The afternoon meeting was a disaster of epic proportions. Marcus attempted to present a hastily thrown-together strategy that he had plagiarized from various online sources, complete with spelling errors and outdated statistics. Mr. Henderson and his daughter Jennifer, who had recently joined the family business after completing her MBA at University of Chicago, saw right through the mediocre presentation. They were not impressed by Marcus's stammering explanations or his desperate attempts to shift blame to his team. Within 2 hours, Henderson Industries had officially terminated their contract with our department, representing a loss of over $2 million in annual revenue. The news spread throughout Pinnacle Marketing Solutions like wildfire, and by 5 o'clock, Marcus was in the most difficult position of his career. Our CEO, Patricia Morrison, had called an emergency meeting for the following morning, and everyone knew that heads would roll. That evening, as I was leaving the office, Marcus approached me with an expression I had never seen before. The arrogance was gone, replaced by genuine desperation. His usually perfectly styled hair was disheveled, his expensive tie was loosened, and there were visible stress lines around his eyes. He asked if I would be willing to work late to help him prepare for the morning meeting, offering to buy dinner and promising that things would be different going forward. I looked at this man who had spent 3 years undermining my contributions and stealing my ideas, and I felt a mixture of satisfaction and pity. Instead of gloating or making demands, I simply told him that I had other commitments that evening and headed home to my 1-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Park, where I spent the night updating my resume and researching new job opportunities. The next morning brought unexpected chaos when Marcus failed to show up for the crucial meeting with our CEO. His secretary called his apartment multiple times, but there was no answer. By 10 o'clock, Patricia Morrison was furious, and she asked me to track down Marcus immediately. That's when I received the phone call that would lead us to this moment in the hospital waiting room. St. Mary's Hospital emergency room had called our office because they had found Marcus unconscious in his apartment building's parking garage after suffering what appeared to be a severe panic attack. The paramedics had discovered our business cards in his wallet and called our main office number. When the hospital asked for his emergency contact information, they were directed to call his assistant, which meant they called me. As I sat in that uncomfortable plastic chair, listening to the steady hum of medical equipment and watching nurses move efficiently through the sterile corridors, I realized that fate had presented me with an unexpected opportunity. The admitting nurse, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair, approached me with a clipboard full of forms that needed to be completed for Marcus's treatment. She explained that Marcus was conscious but heavily sedated, and that he had been asking for his assistant to handle all the paperwork and communication with his family. The irony was overwhelming as I filled out forms for the man who had consistently dismissed me as just the assistant, never acknowledging that I was the person who had been holding his department together for 3 years. When the nurse asked about his family contacts, I explained that Marcus had always been very private about his personal life, but I provided the information I had for his elderly mother who lived in a nursing home in Michigan and his estranged brother who worked in Seattle. The nurse nodded sympathetically and mentioned that it was unusual for someone so young to have a panic attack severe enough to require hospitalization, suggesting that he must have been under tremendous stress. As I waited for the doctor to provide an update on Marcus's condition, I made several phone calls to handle the immediate crisis at our office. I spoke with Patricia Morrison and explained the situation, assuring her that I would handle all urgent matters in Marcus's absence. I also called our remaining clients to postpone meetings and address any immediate concerns, drawing on my detailed knowledge of every account in our portfolio. The afternoon brought an unexpected visitor to the hospital. Jennifer Henderson, the daughter of our former client, arrived with a bouquet of flowers and a concerned expression. She had heard through industry connections that Marcus had been hospitalized, and despite their business relationship ending poorly, she wanted to express her concern for his well-being. Her genuine compassion impressed me, and we struck up a conversation in the hospital cafeteria while waiting for visiting hours to begin. During our discussion, Jennifer mentioned that her family had been disappointed by the recent presentation, not because they expected perfection, but because they had hoped to see innovation and genuine understanding of their business challenges. She explained that Henderson Industries was indeed looking to modernize their operations and embrace sustainable practices, but they needed a marketing partner who truly understood their vision and could help them communicate that transformation to their customers. As we talked, I found myself describing some of the ideas I had developed for her company, carefully avoiding any mention of my secret presentation. Jennifer's eyes lit up as I explained the concept of positioning Henderson Industries as a pioneer in sustainable manufacturing, and she asked thoughtful questions that demonstrated her deep understanding of both marketing strategy and environmental responsibility. By the time visiting hours began, Jennifer and I had discovered that we shared similar educational backgrounds and professional philosophies. She had studied sustainable business practices at University of Chicago and was passionate about helping traditional companies evolve to meet modern consumer expectations while maintaining their core values. I shared my experience in developing integrated marketing campaigns that balanced innovation with respect for established brand identities. When we finally entered Marcus's hospital room, the scene was both pathetic and enlightening. Marcus lay in the narrow bed looking pale and vulnerable, his usual commanding presence diminished by the standard hospital gown and the 4-line attached to his arm. The confident executive who had built his career on intimidation and stolen ideas now looked like what he truly was, a fraud who had finally been exposed by his own limitations. The attending physician, Dr. Rodriguez, explained that Marcus had suffered a severe anxiety attack brought on by acute stress, and that he would need several days of rest before returning to work. The doctor recommended that Marcus consider stress management counseling and possibly take a temporary leave of absence to address the underlying issues that had contributed to his condition. As I stood beside his bed, Marcus looked up at me with an expression of genuine remorse and whispered an apology that was 3 years overdue. He acknowledged that he had not treated me fairly and asked if I would be willing to help him salvage his career and our department's reputation. For the first time since I had known him, Marcus was speaking to me as an equal rather than as a subordinate. Jennifer Henderson, who had been quietly observing our interaction, suddenly addressed me directly. She asked if I would be interested in presenting my ideas for Henderson Industries directly to her and her father, explaining that she had been impressed by our conversation and believed that I might have the innovative perspective they were seeking. The look of shock on Marcus's face was priceless as he realized that his former client was more interested in working with his assistant than with him. Over the next several hours, as Marcus slept under sedation, Jennifer and I continued our discussion in the hospital's family conference room. I showed her detailed notes from my research on Henderson Industries, and she was amazed by the depth of my understanding of their business challenges and market opportunities. She immediately called her father to arrange a meeting for the following day, explaining that she had found someone who might be able to develop the marketing strategy they needed. The next morning brought a whirlwind of activity. I met with Mr. Henderson and Jennifer at their corporate headquarters, a beautiful restored brick building in Chicago's industrial district that reflected their company's blend of traditional craftsmanship and modern efficiency. The presentation I had been secretly developing for months finally had its moment, and the response was everything I had hoped for and more. Mr. Henderson, a distinguished gentleman in his 60s with silver hair and intelligent eyes, listened intently as I explained how Henderson Industries could position themselves as leaders in sustainable manufacturing while maintaining the quality and reliability that had built their reputation over 4 decades. Jennifer took detailed notes and asked strategic questions that demonstrated her commitment to the company's evolution. The financial projections I presented showed how sustainable practices could reduce their operating costs by 15% within the first year, while opening new market opportunities worth an estimated $3 million in additional revenue. The environmental impact analysis demonstrated how their transformation could eliminate over 2,000 tons of waste annually while creating a positive corporate image that would attract environmentally conscious consumers. By the end of the 2-hour presentation, Henderson Industries had not only decided to work with our firm again, but they had specifically requested that I lead their account personally. Mr. Henderson explained that they wanted someone who understood their vision and could help them communicate their transformation story authentically to their customers and stakeholders. The contract they offered was worth twice the value of their previous agreement with our department, and it included provisions for a long-term partnership that could expand into additional services including public relations, event marketing, and digital strategy development. More importantly for me personally, they insisted that I be designated as their primary account manager, with full authority to make strategic decisions and lead their marketing initiatives. When I returned to the hospital that afternoon to check on Marcus, I found him sitting up in bed looking much better, though still wearing the humbled expression that had replaced his usual arrogance. The nurse mentioned that he had been asking for me every hour, clearly anxious to hear about the status of our department and our remaining clients. As I sat in the chair beside his bed, I explained that Henderson Industries had agreed to return as a client, but that they had requested significant changes in how their account would be managed. Marcus's relief was visible as he thanked me repeatedly for salvaging what he assumed would be the end of his career. His gratitude was genuine, but it was clear that he still didn't fully understand how dramatically his world was about to change. The conversation that followed was unlike any we had ever had during our 3 years of working together. For the first time, Marcus listened to me without interrupting, asked for my opinions without dismissing them, and acknowledged that he had underestimated my abilities and contributions to our department's success. He even admitted that he had been intimidated by my education and innovative thinking, which had led him to minimize my role rather than embrace my potential. When I explained that Henderson Industries had specifically requested me as their account manager, Marcus was initially confused, then impressed, and finally concerned about what this meant for his own position within the company. I assured him that I had no intention of undermining his role, but that I expected our working relationship to be based on mutual respect and genuine collaboration going forward. The following week brought a series of meetings with Patricia Morrison and the other executives at Pinnacle Marketing Solutions to formalize the new arrangement with Henderson Industries and discuss my expanded role within the company. Patricia, who had always been supportive but had never fully recognized my potential, was amazed by the detailed presentation I had developed and the strategic thinking that had impressed our client. The promotion they offered me came with a substantial salary increase, my own office, and the authority to build a team of marketing professionals who shared my commitment to innovative, research-based strategies. More importantly, it represented validation of my skills and contributions after 3 years of being treated as Marcus's subordinate despite my qualifications and achievements. Marcus returned to work the following Monday with a noticeably different attitude toward me and our other colleagues. The panic attack had served as a wake-up call that forced him to confront his own insecurities and the toxic management style that had nearly destroyed his career. While he remained our department head, he began actively seeking my input on strategic decisions and publicly acknowledging my contributions to our team's success. The transformation in our office dynamic was remarkable. Other team members, who had previously been afraid to share ideas or challenge Marcus's decisions, began contributing more actively to brainstorming sessions and project development. The collaborative atmosphere that emerged led to more creative solutions and better results for all our clients, not just Henderson Industries. 6 months later, as I sat in my new corner office overlooking the Chicago River, I reflected on how a medical emergency had become the catalyst for positive changes that might never have occurred otherwise. The Henderson Industries campaign had exceeded all projections, generating significant media attention and attracting 3 new clients who were specifically interested in working with our team because of our reputation for innovative, sustainable marketing. Marcus and I had developed what could genuinely be called a professional partnership, built on mutual respect and complementary strengths, rather than the dysfunctional power dynamic that had characterized our previous relationship. He had undergone stress management counseling as recommended by Dr. Rodriguez, and the changes in his leadership style had earned recognition from upper management and improved morale throughout our department. The success of the Henderson Industries campaign had also opened doors for my own professional development. I had been invited to speak at industry conferences, had been featured in Marketing Today magazine, and had received inquiries from executive recruiters representing major agencies in New York and Los Angeles. While I was happy with my current position, it was satisfying to know that my work was being recognized beyond our company. Jennifer Henderson and I had maintained our professional relationship and had developed a genuine friendship based on shared values and mutual respect for each other's expertise. She had been promoted to vice president of marketing at her family's company, and we worked together closely on campaigns that continued to position Henderson Industries as an innovative leader in sustainable manufacturing. The most valuable lesson from this entire experience was the importance of persistence and self-advocacy in professional situations. For 3 years, I had allowed Marcus to minimize my contributions and steal credit for my ideas because I believed that good work would eventually be recognized and rewarded. The reality was that I needed to be more assertive in claiming credit for my achievements and more strategic in positioning myself for advancement. The hospital waiting room where this story began had been a place of uncertainty and anxiety, but it had also been the setting for a conversation that changed the trajectory of my career. Sometimes the most significant opportunities arise from unexpected circumstances, and being prepared to seize those moments can transform challenges into triumphs. As I watched the sunset paint the Chicago skyline in brilliant oranges and purples, I realized that Marcus's medical emergency had inadvertently given me the chance to prove my worth directly to our most important client. The phrase, "she's just the assistant," that had dismissed me for so long had become irrelevant when I demonstrated that I was the person who truly understood their business needs and could deliver the innovative solutions they required. The story of how an arrogant boss discovered that his success depended on the assistant he had consistently underestimated serves as a reminder that talent and dedication will ultimately be recognized, even when recognition comes in unexpected ways. Sometimes it takes a crisis to reveal who the real leaders are and who has been quietly holding everything together behind the scenes. Today, as I continue to build my career and mentor other young professionals who face similar challenges, I remember that moment in the hospital when everything changed. It wasn't magic or luck that turned the situation around. It was preparation meeting opportunity and the courage to step forward when the moment was right. The assistant became the solution, and the boss learned that respect is earned through genuine collaboration rather than intimidation and theft of ideas.